in about a month. Looks like it's doing very well.
Coming up on tomorrow's Live at 5, the first-degree murder trial for Charles Lesage continues. The victim's father scheduled to once again be on the stand for the prosecution.
Gerald Barnes testified today. More than 45 other witnesses expected to be called by the prosecution. Lesage is accused of murdering 11-year-old Rosalind Barnes. Police say the child was kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and strangled. Lesage's trial is expected to last at least 3 weeks.
Okay. We'll have the full wrap on that coming up on tomorrow's Live at 5. Right now, time for NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. The countdown to the Clinton administration with the confirmation hearings and an ultimatum for Iraq.
Saddam Hussein's missiles. The UN warns get rid of them or else. That grounded supertanker off Scotland's coast. Can a catastrophe be avoided? And ballet great Rudolf Nureyev and jazz legend Dizzy Gillespie. The arts lose two of the best.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight, sitting in for Tom is Jane Pauley.
Good evening. Another showdown tonight with Iraq's Saddam Hussein. The United Nations gave him 48 hours to get anti-aircraft missiles out of an area patrolled by Allied warplanes or face attack again. NBC's John Dancy has the latest on this newest confrontation with Baghdad. John?
Jane, Saddam has tested the U.S. before and backed down. The worry is that this time he may not.
Oh, we're still talking about it.
The ultimatum was completed late this afternoon at the French mission in New York by the U.S., Britain, France, and Russia. It is a stark ultimatum to Saddam. Stop flying planes into the no-fly zone and remove missiles which threaten Western aircraft enforcing the zone. The document says flatly, this is a final warning.
I think the Iraqis will understand what side of the bread is butter and what side is dangerous.
The forbidden area, most of southern Iraq, was declared off-limits to Iraqi planes after Saddam began systematically trying to kill off rival Shiite Muslims living there. After receiving the warning, Iraq's ambassador seemed to give a little.
I think Iraq does not have any intention of escalating or having a crisis.
Iraq has now concentrated anti-aircraft missiles in and near the no-fly zone. They're an older type missile, but still a threat to aircraft from the carrier Kitty Hawk or Air Force planes based in Saudi Arabia. Military sources say they believe one night of raids could take out enough of the missiles to send a message. The State Department today pointedly warned Iraq that the U.S. had shot down one of its planes before.
Iraq should take these warnings very seriously.
Congressional leaders who met President Bush said he has not yet decided to use force despite the ultimatum.
The president indicated that he's consulting with our allies, has made no decision, is weighing all options.
The Bush administration has stepped up consultations with President-elect Bill Clinton and won his support.
The President-elect joins President Bush in saying that we will tolerate no violation of any resolutions by Saddam Hussein.
George Bush leaves office in 2 weeks. Officials here are worried that Saddam Hussein is trying to test him to find out if Bush is willing to use force so close to the end of his term. Jane?
Thanks, John. This becomes Bill Clinton's problem in just 2 weeks. But on the domestic front, he got some good news today. Last year, the best-selling car in America was made in America, too. The Ford Taurus beat out a Honda, becoming the first American car to win the title since Ford Escort in 1988. The news came as Clinton was meeting with the heads of the big three automakers in Little Rock. More on that from NBC's Andrea Mitchell. Andrea?
Jane, there were no commitments, but Bill Clinton called his meeting with the auto industry a fresh start on building trust among business, government, and labor.
The auto industry executives asked to come to Little Rock. Clinton insisted that they bring along United Auto Workers President Owen Bieber to make sure labor's point of view was included. Clinton believes reviving the auto industry is crucial to getting the economy going. During the campaign, he criticized the industry for not being as productive as it should have been.
They asked for protection from imports, and they got it. They asked for regulatory relief, and they got it. They asked the auto workers to give them concessions, and they got them, and they got them, and they got them.
Now the industry wants more breaks.
We discussed the approach to regulatory policy, and we were very pleased with the results of that discussion.
Topping the wish list, a 25% tariff on Japanese minivans repealed by the Bush administration, favored by powerful members of Congress.
American industry has been hurt by special preference afforded to the Japanese by
the Bush administration and by Secretary Brady.
Another concern of industry leaders, mileage regulations, which they say will add $1,000 to the cost of a new car by 1996. Clinton has favored even tougher standards, 40 miles per gallon compared to the current 27.5 per gallon.
I strongly believe we have to raise the mileage standards, but I have never said that I didn't think there were more than one way to do it, or that we shouldn't be flexible in the way we approach it.
One thing Clinton and the industry agree on, the need to bring health costs under control.
Ford spends as much on health care as it does on steel. Health care providers are our largest supplier.
The industry also believes a gasoline tax makes economic sense, something Clinton is considering to reduce the budget deficit. Today, Clinton accused the Bush administration of camouflaging the real size of that deficit. Jane?
Oh, thanks, Andrea. Is the American auto industry making a comeback? We get that part of the story tonight from NBC's George Lewis.
The Ford people held a victory parade of Tauruses outside the Detroit Auto Show to celebrate. The Taurus sales figure, strong customer demand for domestically made trucks and minivans, have started a lot of talk about a turnaround in Detroit. Speculation that domestic automakers are poised to crush the import competition, especially if they get new tariffs from the Clinton administration.
So bottom line is that Detroit not only has caught up, but they're probably starting to move ahead.
But one automotive marketing expert says the victory declarations may be a bit premature.
Race is not over at the time Taurus crosses ahead by a nose. There's still other quality and satisfaction issues that the American consumers are demanding of all auto manufacturers.
In these highly competitive times, keeping the customer satisfied is more important than ever to automakers and auto dealers. It could make the difference between surviving or dying in the business. And what is it those customers are looking for these days?
Quality and reliability is very important because I have 2 young children, and if the car breaks down, we're in big trouble.
We want a car that starts when you put the key in. We want one that stops when you put the brakes on it. And basically, we don't want to have to do anything except change the oil and the routine maintenance.
Dealers are discovering that customers are demanding better service. A growing number of dealerships are eliminating the haggling process in the showroom, charging a fixed price for their cars. Ford dealer Ken Alderson of Maumee, Ohio, says when he started that policy, the customers turned out in droves.
Initially, we didn't have enough sales consultants to even handle people. It was actually a zoo.
The experts predict that Japanese cars will continue to lose market share to the domestic automakers, but that Japan will remain a strong competitor. And that competition, they say, is good for the consumer. George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Where Nightly News continues battling a Scottish oil spill that could be twice the size of the Exxon Valdez.
The latest vehicle from GM is made entirely of plastic that turns to steel. The new GM MasterCard. Every time you use it, GM will credit 5% of your purchase toward a new car or truck from GM, and there's no annual fee. To apply, call 1-800-945-3500 and start saving hundreds, even thousands of dollars over and above any other discounts or rebates. Call 1-800-945-3500. The GM card, the new financial vehicle.
Taste it, Grandpa.
He never would have tried this with his old adhesive.
Fixodent holds stronger than any other adhesive. It even stands up to the hottest liquids. For the strongest hold you can get, Fixodent and forget it.
Day after day, you make those glasses of thick Metamucil disappear. Why not make them all disappear with FiberCon? Doctor-recommended FiberCon gives you the same fiber regularity in tablets.
Easy-to-swallow tablets.
Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
High winds and rough seas today pushed that supertanker further onto the rocks off the coast of Scotland, but the ship has not broken up, raising hopes that the oil spill can be contained. Still, it's touch and go in the environmentally sensitive Shetland Islands. NBC's Keith Miller is on the scene.
Wedged aground and gushing oil, the tanker Brayer is in danger of emptying its entire cargo of oil into the sea. Adverse weather is still preventing salvage crews from moving in and pumping out the oil that remains aboard. An oil slick leading from the ruptured hull stretches for 7 miles.
It is still a threat.
The slick itself, I must say, I'm more concerned about oil that may still be on board the vessel.
It's estimated that half the 25 million gallons of oil aboard the tanker has already leaked into the sea. Waves washed the chocolate-colored water to shore, and in the deadly mix, wildlife struggled to survive. Few of the birds rescued from the contaminated sea are expected to live.
Take a wee while sinking, and see what the final results are. But it's going to be pretty horrific, as you can see.
The British government is investigating the accident, but the American company that manages the tanker claimed it did nothing wrong.
The crew, I think, did an outstanding job of trying to maintain the ship off the shore. The ship was completely seaworthy.
A break in the weather allowed cleanup crews to get to work. For the first time since the Brayer ran aground, workmen were able to put out container booms. Flying just yards above the surface, planes sprayed detergent over the slick to help break it up. The high winds and heavy seas are also helping to disperse the oil slick. Nature, which contributed to the cause of this accident, is now playing a part in trying to contain it. Keith Miller, NBC News, the Shetland Islands.
During World War II, thousands of GIs volunteered for secret mustard gas experiments. Today, a committee of the National Academy of Sciences reported direct links between exposure to that gas and many long-term illnesses. More on this from NBC science correspondent Robert Bazell.
When American servicemen went off to fight in World War II, U.S. military officials had sharp memories of the gas warfare that had killed thousands in the First World War, so they conducted tests.
The petty officer come in and asked for volunteers for something that was classified as top secret, and they wouldn't tell us what it was.
The Institute of Medicine panel concluded that 60,000 American servicemen were used as guinea pigs. Some of the survivors were at the press conference.
I was 17 years old. I didn't know mustard gas from high-test gas at the time. And they were told that it was a direct order that you had to go into the chambers at that time or you would be court-martialed and sent to Leavenworth prison.
The panel concluded that in addition to immediate burns, the men who went into these gas chambers could be suffering long-term effects, ranging from skin and lung trouble to leukemia. But no one knows the extent of the problem because the men were ordered to never reveal what happened. They were even told to lie when they got medical care.
I got burnt real bad. I got burnt on my foot, and I went to the hospital, second, third degree burn on my right leg, and I had to tell them I got burnt by coffee.
In later years, when they sought help from the Veterans Administration, the men got letters like this, telling them they had never been exposed to mustard gas.
United States servicemen who had been exposed, knowingly exposed to a highly toxic chemical. The deliberate lack of follow-up was, to me and to the committee members, really a very sad event.
The Defense Department has had no comment on the matter. The Veterans Administration has been granting some compensation in recent years, but many men remain angry.
War was on. It was the type of thing you were supposed to do.
Robert Bazell, NBC News, Washington.
Where Nightly News continues, a ballet legend and the shadow of AIDS.
Ooh, it took a cold morning like this one for me to discover a really great hot cereal for my family. And who would have expected? It's Grape-Nuts. I just pour Grape-Nuts, add milk, and microwave for a minute. It's got a warm, smooth, hearty taste. That's so delicious, we all love it. And Grape-Nuts is fat-free. It's the perfect way to help keep us all going on a cold winter's morning. Hot, delicious Grape-Nuts. Try it for yourself.
Hot or cold, breakfast with post-Grape-Nut cereal helps keep you going strong all morning long.
There's a smart way to doctor a cough. Robitussin cough drops.
Try this, it works.
With an active ingredient that speeds soothing relief to your cough.
Try this. It works.
Robitussin cough drops. Cough drops from the cough experts.
You know, California prunes have a lot of vitamin A. And they say that vitamin A is good for your eyesight. Maybe you haven't had a prune lately.
Sweet, delicious California prunes. Find out how good they really are.
It's really important that the dog be bred right and then be fed right.
Tom Wilson, top breeder of champion Weimaraners.
I think Pedigree is the one dog food that has the kind of chunks of meat in it that the dogs really like. Pedigree meat and the Pedigree Mealtime Dry mixed together is the best combination I've ever found for my dogs. I've been feeding Pedigree for almost 10 years now, and my dogs do so well on it I wouldn't change a thing.
Pedigree, developed with vets, recommended by top breeders.
Perhaps the greatest ballet dancer of this or any age, Rudolf Nureyev, died in Paris today of AIDS. He was 54. The athletic, charismatic Nureyev, a Soviet defector at the height of the Cold War, died in his sleep, relatives and friends at his side. When Rudolf Nureyev walked on this Paris stage last October, the audience gasped. Too weak to stand as he accepted France's highest cultural honor, his weakened body a shadow of its former vitality. Nureyev likened his dancing to euphoria. With unequaled passion and skill, he redefined ballet, became an international star, and introduced a huge popular audience to dance. Nureyev's journey began in Leningrad. At 17, the young man born in poverty defied his family and enrolled in ballet school, soon becoming the Kirov Ballet's leading dancer. In 1961, he stunned the world, defecting while on tour in Paris, seeking artistic, not political freedom.
My country is stage. My nationality is a dancer.
He stayed at his craft long after critics said his time had passed, but the joy he brought over 4 decades of dance remains unforgettable. Nureyev was world-renowned. Most people with AIDS are not. On America Close Up tonight, paying for their care. It's about to get tougher. The new definition of AIDS, broadened as of January 1st, is expected to double the number of cases. Funds have been appropriated. Will Bill Clinton release the money? NBC's Gary Matsumoto reports from Washington, D.C.
Scott, Joe, Bertini.
AIDS organizations in America are much like the AIDS quilt unfurled here last year, a patchwork of diverse groups loosely tied together by the common threads of good intentions and lack of money. A grim outlook brightened in 1991 with the signing of the Ryan White Bill, named after the young hemophiliac who died of AIDS after a transfusion. The legislation allocated $880 million a year to AIDS research, AIDS clinics, and counseling services. But the Bush administration has budgeted only a third of the funds Congress originally called for in the bill. In the final week of the presidential campaign, Bill Clinton promised that when he took office, the federal government would pay up.
I want to increase federal funding for research, prevention, and treatment to fully fund the Ryan White Health Care Act.
Starved for cash, AIDS counseling services such as this one in Des Moines aren't just lean, they're skeletal.
We have a caseload of about 135, 140 people right now. By June of 1993, there'll probably be over 200, and it's just me.
In Philadelphia, money from the Ryan White Bill supports home health care programs.
When you went into the hospital, because...
Nurse Jean Marie Zippo keeps an eye on the Fletchers, both of whom are HIV positive. Through counseling as well as health care, she hopes to slow the advance of their disease.
Sandra, you all right? What happened? It was just a sudden sharp pain? Huh?
I've been getting them for a while.
You have shortness of breath?
Real sharp.
These are signs of having
Yes, hold on,
a heart
Jean
problem.
Marie.
All right. Dr. Van Eyder? Hi, it's Jean Marie Zippo. I'm with Sandra right now. She's
A nurse on site, a doctor on the phone. This home health care session, supported by Ryan White money, saved a costly visit to a hospital emergency room. In suburban New York, federal funding means badly needed dental care for AIDS patients. Kathy Mancini hadn't seen a dentist in 3 years.
I could not find a dentist to pull my teeth. I wanted to avoid the drilling, the actual drilling, anything that would cause blood or infection.
Now, Marty, you have no cavities. How about that?
Clinics such as this one also help prevent the spread of AIDS because patients feel free to disclose their condition.
When I went to regular dentists, I felt like I was hiding my HIV positive. If I feel good and I know I'm getting good care, I know he'll get good care.
Healthcare workers helping those with AIDS. Overburdened, overworked, underfunded.
Some say what was full funding a few years ago is just partial funding today.
It would take about $1.5 billion to fully fund the Ryan White Care legislation that was written in 1990.
With the deficit swelling far beyond expectations, extra money's unlikely. The Clinton transition officials say the president-elect is still committed to fully funding the Ryan White Act when he submits his budget in February. Gary Matsumoto, NBC News, Washington.
I'll have more news when we continue.
Have you ever eaten fat-free foods? Have you? Because if you had, you'd know how bad they taste, and you wouldn't need me to tell you. But I'll try it. This is wonderful. I like this. It's crispy, it's light, and I know it's not fat-free.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes have always been fat-free.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes, fat-free?
Taste them again for the first time.
All right, so I was wrong. Sometimes I'm wrong.
You are about to change the way you take cold medicine forever. Now, for the first time, you can take your favorite juice with all its great taste and stir in new Dristan juice mix-in. Dristan will ease your cough and nasal congestion and soothe your pain, all without drowsiness. New Dristan juice mix-in, the newest way to take care of your cold, only from the makers of Dristan.
I try to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing, could lead even to tooth loss. And now, Sensodyne has fluoride.
Fluoride, great.
New Sensodyne helps stop the pain of sensitive teeth.
I hear that a few of you still haven't tried delicious Sunsweet pitted prunes. Well, I don't know why. Sunsweet prunes are tender and sweet, and they won't bite. Honest. Not if you bite them first.
Introducing Ford Taurus Wagon and the bags. While all wagons have room for bags in back, only Ford has wagons in this class with 2 bags up front, keeping Taurus out front in safety. Ford Taurus Wagon.
There's an ingredient in Efferdent you may not expect. Antibacterial Efferdent, made with Arm & Hammer baking soda. Leaves dentures baking soda fresh and clean.
Former financial wheeler dealer Charles Keating got hit with another conviction today. A federal jury in Los Angeles convicted Keating and his son of looting Lincoln Savings and Loan, guilty on 73 counts in the largest thrift failure in U.S. history. Legalized gambling continues to spread. The latest edition is Keno, the numbers game, now being played in 8 states, with 20 more considering it. More from NBC's Robert Hager.
Maryland became the latest to start it this week in hundreds of bars and restaurants. The state's governor, Donald Schaefer, who pushed it to finance a $50 million gap in the state budget, was among the first players.
Keno's attractive to state governments because they're starved for revenue. And lately, regular lotteries haven't been bringing in as much as expected. But critics charge the states are acting immorally because they say Keno is much more addictive than traditional lotteries.
Patrons choose a series of numbers, the bets are registered by computer, and players watch a screen for winning numbers flashed almost at once, instantly and visually seductive. Patrons wager from $1 to $20 each game. Most winnings amount to only a few dollars. The biggest payoff possible is $100,000, but chances of that are 1 in 8 million. A new statewide game begins every 5 minutes, 6 a.m. to midnight.
You can lose a lot of money fast. But if you got the luck, you win.
I love it. I could sit here all day.
In Las Vegas, a doctor who treats compulsive gamblers compares Keno to cocaine. He's Robert Huttard.
Video gaming is the crack of gambling. It provides the same effects, but it takes the addict to bottom quicker.
But Maryland's Governor Schaefer disagrees.
No one came in and held a gun to my head as I walked in the door and said, "You've got to play." Not a person here. No one here is forcing anyone to play. They don't have to.
Don't have to play, but they will, says Dr. Huttard.
The social cost for video forms of gambling really is enormous, and I think that needs to be factored into the politicians' equations as they approve and legalize this form of gambling.
The danger, critics say, is that if the game is a winner for states, which keep almost half of everything bet, then budget writers are just as much at risk as gamblers of becoming addicted to Keno. Robert Hager, NBC News, Bethesda, Maryland.
On Wall Street today, stocks were slightly lower in very heavy trading.
Okay, bring your noses up to the TV and I'll show you that Folgers Crystals has more ground roast aroma than ever. This is what you've been using. Sniff. Nice, huh? Now, take a whiff of the latest. Come on, there's enough aroma for everybody. Hey, Folgers Crystals, made with mountain-grown beans, fresh brewed and crystallized. Folgers Crystals, with more aroma than ever. Aroma so rich, you can taste it.
Know where I am? I'm at one of the finest resorts in the world. And if you're looking for a great vacation value, look no more. All your daytime fun, all your nighttime entertainment, and all your food is included in one low price. But what makes this resort really great is that it takes you to some of the world's other great vacation spots.
In the morning, in the evening, Carnival's got the fun.
Fun. That's what makes Carnival the most popular cruise line in the world.
There's a reason more people go to Sears for a new battery.
Can't believe I left my lights on.
Only Sears has the Die Hard. Sears is so confident of Die Hard starting power, if you need a jump, Sears will do it absolutely free. Anytime, anywhere, even if you leave your lights on.
Got stranded once. Never again.
You can count on Die Hard. More power when you need it most.
I dreaded this visit to the doctor. I had stomach problems. You know, more chalky medicine to take. I mean, just getting it down is... But what my doctor told me about really blew my mind. New Mylanta gel caps.
Introducing the antacid with absolutely no chalky taste. New Mylanta gel caps. Potent antacid relief now in an easy-to-swallow gel cap. New Mylanta gel caps.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Along with Rudolf Nureyev, another giant of the arts died today. Jazz great Dizzy Gillespie, father of bebop, dead of cancer at 75. NBC's Sarah James reports.
He was the ambassador of jazz, the trumpet his calling card, and oh, those trademark cheeks. In a career that spanned 7 decades, Gillespie recorded more than 100 albums, took home the industry's top awards, and even entertained at the White House. He was an American cultural icon who played the world and learned from it, incorporating international tunes and tempos into his repertoire. But always at the core, he was a jazz man who could play a mean horn and a sweet one. But as Dizzy told the Today Show's Katie Couric last January, the trumpet wasn't the first instrument he tried.
What was wrong with the trombone?
I couldn't reach to the 7th position.
His arms were too short, a fact trumpet fans will never regret. Dizzy Gillespie played with the greats of jazz. With Charlie Parker, he sparked the bebop revolution.
He opened up the music to people who otherwise would have felt it was distant and forbidding and all that.
For Gillespie, playing the trumpet was a way to bring people together.
We can and must learn to go beyond our differences and learn to share that which is common to all of us.
The gentle giant of jazz endures. Sarah James, NBC News, New York.
And that's Nightly News for this Wednesday. For Tom Brokaw, I'm Jane Pauley. Good night.
Just ahead from your 24-hour news source.
A robbery suspect crushed to death by his victim's car, but police aren't sure who was driving. I'm Scott Pope, a live report coming up.
Accused killer Charles Lesage on trial for the murder of 11-year-old Rosalind Barnes.
Despite rescue efforts, a 72-year-old man becomes the state's latest traffic fatality.
It's on its way. We have our next chance of snow by about this time tomorrow. I'll have more on that coming up.
Plus, the Hawkeyes taking on the Hoosiers tonight. All the day's news is coming up next.
Just because the 80s are over doesn't mean you have to stop looking out for number one, especially when Chevrolet makes it so easy for you. For instance, for a limited time, Chevrolet has made it possible for dealers to get you a new Lumina, equipped with the extras you're looking for, but without the extra cost. Now, who said the 90s were going to be dull?
Saving money. What a way to start the year. See your Central Iowa Chevy dealer.
Is this Weight Watchers? It looks like fun. Makes it easier. It's easier to follow. You gotta love this. Join now and register free. The new Weight Watchers for a brand new you. Call today.
Pigeon says no finance charges, no down payment, and no payments till 1994. Pigeon's Home Furniture has said no to high prices since 1907. And now for a very limited time, you can still get January clearance prices. Plus no down except sales tax, no finance, no payments of any kind till 1994. 1 full year. We must move $10 million worth of inventory. You can save on furniture, appliances, TVs, carpeting, satellites, and accessories. But hurry, this is a very limited offer. Don't miss it.
Live from WHO TV 13, where the news comes first 24 hours a day. John Bachman, Kim Kerrigan, Rick Silvestrini with sports, and meteorologist Gary Amble with the weather. This is News Center 13 at 6.
Des Moines investigators searching for clues in this car. It played a key role in a strange case in which one man was killed.
To the conclusion that it was my daughter.
And the father of murdered schoolgirl Rosalind Barnes breaks down on the stand while testifying today. Good evening. Thank you for being with us. More on the Charles Lesage murder trial just a little bit later in this newscast.
We begin, though, with a bizarre robbery and chase that ended with one of the suspects crushed to death by the victim's car.
Police say the robber's accomplice was behind the wheel. It's a strange and complicated story.
In a minute, Jim Strickland will take us step-by-step through the chase, but we begin tonight with News Center 13's Scott Pope along Ohio Street, where the chase ended. Scott?
John, at this point, police do believe there were 3 people involved. Tonight, one of them's dead. Another fled on foot and hasn't been seen. And the third, the victim, says, yes, it was his car, but he says he wasn't driving. Investigators spent much of the afternoon going over the car, inch by inch, dusting for fingerprints and looking for any other evidence that may lead them to the person who was driving. The car is owned by 20-year-old Russell Channon of Des Moines. He says one of the guys who tried to rob him was behind the wheel.
We're trying to ascertain just exactly who played what role, and we're trying now to take what information we have from the reporting person, trying to nail that down.
Assistant Polk County Medical Examiner Dr. Lauren Matthews identifies the victim as 19-year-old Timothy James Thomason. Matthews says Thomason died from a severed spine and massive chest injuries. Police also recovered a small handgun somewhere in this general area, but they won't say who that gun belonged to or even if it was involved in this incident. The big piece of the puzzle that's still missing is the second robber, and finding him will be difficult.
Certainly if there were any people working in any of those warehouses or commercial buildings over there that has information, we'd like to know it.
John, again, the best police can say right now is that the investigation is continuing, and so far no charges have been filed.
Scott, this is a very complicated story so far. Are detectives believing Channon at this point?
I think they do believe him, John, but the problem is he is the only witness who can give them any kind of story, and it's difficult to take what he says as the gospel truth, if you will, because it is a bizarre case. They just want to go through some of the hard evidence in the car itself and see if it can corroborate his story or not.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott Pope. Well, as we said from the outset, this is a complicated group of circumstances leading to the death of Timothy Thomason.
We asked News Center 13's Jim Strickland to map out exactly what the alleged robbery victim is saying about what happened.
John and Kim, this is indeed confusing, but police have been told this version of the story by Channon. He was at this intersection at 2nd and College when a foot chase ensued. He was chasing one of the two assailants he says tried to rob him at that intersection. They went along this area, a bunch of industrial buildings, and it ended up that Thomason, the assailant who is now dead, ended up in the loading dock. Meantime, Channon says the second suspect took his car and ended up coming up from the south along Ohio Street into the loading dock and hit Thomason. Now, police are looking for witnesses, trying to find the second assailant and trying to find anyone who can corroborate this story. John and Kim?
All right, thank you very much, Jim. The man who may have been behind the wheel of the car that killed Thomason remains at large tonight.
Police have only a vague description. He's thought to be a white male in his mid-20s. He was last seen wearing a dark jacket and blue jeans. Now, if you have any information that could help police in their investigation, you are urged to contact the Des Moines Police Department. A tragic end to a story we told you about earlier this week. 72-year-old Wayne Linall was driving this minivan on Monday. The vehicle was involved in an accident on Army Post Road with this semi. Tonight, word that Mr. Linall has died from the injuries sustained in the accident. The driver of the semi was left uninjured.
An emotional and graphic day of testimony in the first-degree murder trial of Charles Lesage, the man accused in the 1991 strangulation death of Rosalind Barnes. The Polk County jury heard opening statements early this morning from both the prosecution and the defense. Immediately following, the prosecution launched into its case, calling 6 witnesses today. Among those witnesses, the little girl's father, and as News Center 13's Kathy Soltero reports, testimony at times was very difficult.
Rosalind Barnes' father could barely keep his composure as he talked about the time leading up to his daughter's death. Barnes took the stand late today, and even after a short break, he still couldn't hold back the tears.
They described what the body had on, the girl had on at that time. It first brought me to the conclusion that it was my daughter.
The jury also heard testimony and saw graphic pictures from medical examiner Dr. Francis Garrity. He described the extent of injuries the little girl suffered.
Almost at the hairline, we see a rather large red-brown superficial abrasion. In my professional opinion, the young girl, was in fact beaten, strangled, and molested.
The prosecution says it can prove that Lesage was in the area at the time her body was left in the Altoona roadside ditch, that an eyewitness can positively identify Lesage as the last person seen with Rosalind, and some key DNA evidence can tie Lesage to her murder.
Rosalind was still wearing her furry white coat and her black stretch pants and her Jayhawk sweatshirt, but she was dead.
There are many inconsistencies, many matters relating to the credibility of witnesses that I could highlight now. I could go on for a long time, but I think you're probably all eager to start hearing the evidence from the witnesses' mouth.
The judge recessed early today as the testimony from Gerald Barnes became too emotional. Barnes will return to the stand first thing tomorrow morning.
Kathy, how long do they expect the trial to last?
They moved very quickly through 6 witnesses this afternoon. However, the prosecution expects to call at least 45 witnesses, and it could last up to 3 weeks.
Okay, thanks. Kathy Soltero.
January 29th is the day a Michigan judge will determine the best interest of a former Iowa girl who's in the center of a bitter adoption case. Jan and Robbie DeBoer of Ann Arbor, Michigan have raised 22-month-old Jessica since she was just a few days old. But now her biological parents, Daniel and Kara Schmidt of Blairstown, Iowa, want her back. Yesterday, the judge ruled that the girl will stay with the DeBoers until the hearing. Today, he set that hearing date. Earlier this week, we told you how family and friends of a missing Lamar's woman have been searching for her. Now word that another search for 23-year-old Julie Bach is being organized for this weekend. Bach was last seen December 13th. Officials do suspect foul play. Volunteers are asked to gather Saturday morning at the National Guard Armory in Lamar's.
Hazardous materials crews were called out this afternoon to a fuel spill that luckily turned out to be nothing serious. The huge puddle of fuel had some people nervous before the fire crews were called. About 15 gallons of gasoline drained out of a car, much of it running into a nearby sewer. Hazmat officials don't believe the gas will cause any more problems. I don't know about the weather causing problems. Let's check in with the first look at the forecast from Gary.
Well, John, we have no serious problems right now, but tomorrow at this time we could be seeing some snow entering the state. Here's a check on what you can expect, though, later on tonight as we look out over, well, kind of a cold-looking city. Partly cloudy skies, so the clouds that are over us right now should begin to break up. It'll be seasonably cold tonight, down to about 11 degrees. Then tomorrow, increasing clouds, and it won't be till late in the day before you'll see a chance for some snow to develop. That across the southern part of the state. Tomorrow's high only about 23 degrees. And I'll be back along just in a few minutes, Kim, to tell you when you can expect the first snowflakes to fly here in Des Moines.
All right, thanks, Gary. The new year starting